Hi guys, this is Nicole from Wake Up America. This is going to be a real quick video. I wanted to give you a heads up. On Sunday I plan on making a video that will have a lot more explanations to it, but I just wanted to talk about, here, let me sit down for a second. Not here on a walk. I walked to the market, and the guy who works at the corner market, he was trying to find the lighting. He was telling me about how the Pope's endorsing this Real ID chip, and how basically, you know, I've talked in previous videos about the 5G and the Real ID that they're putting in place, which 5G, guys, is going to break DNA strands. It actually uses your sweat glands as antennas, and it can cause your skin to burn, and they're not doing the testing for it. So what this all adds up to, okay guys, it's all connected, if that makes sense. The 5G, and they've already got it in place. I live maybe an hour or two from a military base, and I have friends out there, they already have the 5G installed. So, and they started getting migraines. There's no one really to turn the complaint in, but it's been epidemic in the area that they've already installed it. If you look into 5G, it can split your DNA strands. It can heat your skin up, cause cancer. And what they've shown is that it actually interferes with animals. So if you have, like, say, a herd of cattle, and you even have normal, not even 5G level, but multi-millimeter waves coming through, and cattle, when they're in a herd, cows will all point their nose in one direction because they can align with the magnetosphere, and by all of them pointing in the same direction, the cows don't stampede each other, right? They're not pointing all different directions so that if they get scared, they don't run into each other. You can watch aerial footage of this, but these kind of waves that 5G has much more of have already been shown to cause cattle to lose their ability to align with the magnetosphere. It affects birds really badly because, you know, birds have like a little homing device in their beak. It picks up on magnetic signatures. It's how they fly everywhere. It's part of it, and the 5G messes up the magnetic. Speaking of birds, that's a beautiful bird right there that just flew by. We have really pretty birds out here. Maybe you can hear them in the background. Sorry, but anyways, what the 5G does is it messes with the birds as well. So from someone who might take this from a prophetic angle, it talks about how in the last days even the beasts will rise up, the animals of the field are going to rise up against the people. It's going to become untenable, and 5G is going to do this. I believe that's part of this. That, and, you know, the Bible also talks about in the end days that God's going to send a fire on the earth. People are going to be scorched. 5G is going to do that too now. Whether they're trying to fulfill prophecy themselves, Gog MaGog, your Roman Catholic Church and your UK and the Rothschilds and the bankers, these people are an extension of Rome, right? And to give you like a little bit of background, because I'll go into it more on Sunday, the guy we call Jesus, that was never his name. Nobody called him Jesus up until 1611. And, you know, it means Hail Zeus. So when Christians say that there's only one name given under heaven, and you say a prayer to this guy named Jesus and you're saved all of a sudden, it is not true. You go look in the Bible to find a place where you say one prayer and that's it. No, but what they're doing is when Constantine took over the Jewish movement that believed that Yahshua was a Messiah, right? If you look into that, there are people King David was a Messiah, right? So when this Jewish guy had this following, they, along with the other Jews, were a real thorn in Rome's side. And if you want to look into that more, some of the background on the book of Revelations is that the guy who wrote it was a Jew who was protesting the Roman church, not the Roman church, the Roman government at the time. And so he wrote the entire book of Revelation in code. So if you know the Old Testament well, you can actually see that he's laying out a message about the Roman church, or Rome, which I think of it as, you know, the UK, the countries that support them, the monarchy there, and of course, the banking families, but they're all involved in that together. That and the Roman Catholic Church. And so at any rate, when Constantine took over, they changed what we call the New Testament. And they set up a person after the god that Constantine worshipped, Mythos, which there's a variety of gods that people worshipped, that they kind of saw as being the same, like in pagan religions, Ishtar, Diane, all of these are the same female part of their deity, their trinity, which that was also something that was added by the Catholic Church. We'll get into that more on this coming Sunday, but the bottom line is that Constantine took over the movement because, well, if you read The Art of War or Machiavelli or anybody else, it's always more effective to commandeer a movement rather than create a martyr. When you create a martyr, you're creating a worse problem a lot of times that just won't go away. And so in order to villainize the Jews, which of course Joshua was a Jew, to take over the movement and to use it to destroy the Jews, which did happen, by the way, every place that Christianity spread. For instance, Christianity, we all know, how the New Testament talks about how Candace was the queen of Ethiopia and that she had a eunuch that she sent out to bring offerings in Jerusalem. And in the book of Acts, it recounts how, I believe it was Philip. It was one of the disciples, Philip or Stephen. I want to say it was Philip, though. Philip the evangelist, the one that had the 7 virgin daughters that all prophesied, that he had witnessed to this Ethiopian, and the Ethiopian had converted from Judaism to Christianity, so to speak, on the spot, and brought that message back to Ethiopia. So if you look at what happened in Ethiopia, though, after Christianity took hold, was that before Christianity took hold, as we know it, the Roman Catholic Church version of it, and the version of it that really has infected all Protestant too, is that the Christians there started slaughtering the Jews, which is pretty much what happened in every place that Christianity spread. I mean, the Christians were out of control. You go look at Alexandria, there was Hypatia. She was not a witch. She was a woman who taught mathematics and philosophy and created the astrolabe. And the Christians, they stripped her naked. She was a virgin, by the way, too. And they stripped her naked, they raped her to death, okay? So that's what's happened everywhere that it's spread. The fruits of that show you that something has been corrupted in the doctrine of the church. And this creating of the name Jesus is all about them setting up a false Messiah and controlling the narrative so that they feel like they're fulfilling the prophecies and setting it up so that people will believe this lie, right? So the AI, we all think about the mark of the beast and the Antichrist, but we're not really thinking about the fact that if you really look at what the Catholic Church is teaching, what you'll see is that it is first of all, it's idolatry. God is not 3, God is 1. God can manifest in 3 different ways. That's part of how he manifests in creation and on this earth, in this dimension we're in here, but he is one God, absolutely. And so this worship of separate deities within the Trinity is sacrilege, it's idolatry. But they've set it up so that they've created their own false Messiah, so that they can fulfill the prophecies that they put in there, and they can control the narrative. And now you've got the Pope. As I said, what got me stirred up is I went to the local market over here, walked over there, I was talking to the storekeep, sweet guy named Mike, and he was telling me about how the Pope is endorsing this ID chip that will go in your hand, just like it says in the book of Revelations, right? The ID chip. So if you look at my video about 5G and the beast system, it kind of addresses this, and that he said he's going to have all the bishops and all the dudes in the Catholic Church get this ID chip in their hand. Now, my theory on all of this is that, you know how there's like a short grift and there's a long grift. There's a person who tries to go for a short con, and there's people who go for the long con. If you look at the Roman Empire, it's been around for a couple thousand years. They're going for the long grift, the long con. And that's why they've been meddling with the doctrines of the church, and that's why they control the megachurch pastors, or the people who are telling them what they can and cannot. I was a pastor's wife. I was in the ministry for 10 years, and I'm telling you that it's controlled opposition. The church as we know it, because it's a deception to bring all of us into this, what really to me amounts to an idolatrous system. But it's a one world government that they're trying to set up, and they want to control not just the politics and the economy, but they want to control the spirituality of it. So basically, I just wanted to kind of give you guys like a little bit of little brief synopsis of what we're going to talk about. Whoops, sorry. I really haven't done a video like this before. A brief synopsis of what I'm going to be talking about on Sunday. Hope you guys all are well. Take care. And, you know, keep an eye on what's going on. You see they got Tony Robinson. They locked him up. They took the Roseanne Barr show off. And they're shutting down all the free speech as they're trying to put this system in place. And you know, at this point in time, it seems more appropriate to say that we should get our hearts right with God and with our fellow man. Politics are good and all, but I think that, you know, we need to tell the truth and we need to be honest about it, you know, and protest Rome, so to speak, setting up their one world government and their false God and this beast system where you won't be able to buy or sell without going through them and having most likely an ID chip planted in your hand and saying it's the mark of God. The thing you could really do is get your heart right with the Almighty. Get to know your neighbors and, yeah, speak the truth. But be a good person, man. Something's going on, and I've been, you know, I don't want to get all spiritual on you guys here, but I've known when stuff was up since I was a kid. Since I was a little kid. I knew what was going on with things in the government, and it wasn't just because, you know, I had family in politics. I would just know certain things, and it would come, and it would end up happening. And I'm not saying I'm a prophet, but I have some kind of intuition. Like I knew when Hillary and Bill Clinton got in office, that was the beginning of the end, so to speak, for America. That we may rebound, but we'll never pull 100% out of it. We're lucky we've made it this far. You know, and as far as the mark of the beast thing goes, and everybody's thinking about this image that the Antichrist is supposed to set up in the... Antichrist just means a false Messiah, which is what they're going to call their false Messiah is Jesus. That's part of the lie, just so you know. And that's why we all have to be real careful about idolatry, because, you know, if you look at even old Israelite... the Israelites always had this problem. And particularly the 10 tribes that were in the other kingdom. When they look at the remains of those towns, they find that they had, you know, things written about how great our God is and his servant Ishtar. Just sounds like, you know, great is our God and his servant Jesus, or, you know, and they were putting Ishtar, they were saying, oh no, we worship the one God, but we believe in this kind of Trinity sort of thing with 3 different gods, and we worship in this aspect of the female goddess as being, we know how that went. You know, Jezebel sacrificed babies, and you look at what goes on in Hollywood and goes on in our politics, and you see that there's a whole lot of pedophilia and perversion, and they're involved in things. You know, in China, they put children on runways at airports, and they do it to adults too, but they take their body parts out and they harvest their kidneys and their lungs and their organs while they're still alive, because the rich people who fly in want to get them fresh. It's sick and twisted stuff, guys. It's really bad, and there's kind of no way that I don't see that God's judgment is coming. What I call, yeah, it's God's judgment. You know, we're sinning against the earth, we're sinning against people, and we're idolatrous. And let's just be realistic. I mean, the second commandment is not to have idols. And idol worship always leads to perversion, sexual immorality. It really leads to breaking every other commandment. And of course, it breaks the first, that there's one God. But it leads to the breaking of every other commandment. When you take idolatry, if you watch what idolatrous civilizations do, I'm sure there's individuals who don't partake, but in general, it always leads to child sacrifice. If you don't think we do that in America, whether you want to look at that philosophically, ideologically, or literally, that's up to you, but it happens. It always leads to the same thing. And that's part of this worship of Mary, that she was this virgin. No, she wasn't. We can get into that more, but I do not believe that she was a virgin. I don't think that Yahshua believed that. I don't think that... Why would she? And that was something the Catholic Church threw in. That came from pagan religion. So, you know, the Israelites we've always had this problem, and it comes from a desire to worship that's so strong that it will drive you that if you can't that sometimes it ends up turning into idolatry. And so, you know, what am I going to say? But part of the lie, you know, we believe, Christians at least believe that the Antichrist is going to set up an image that's going to speak and talk as if it were alive, and it's going to amaze everybody and cause them all to bow down and worship this idolatry. If you go into the book of Daniel and you read about the statue of gold that Nebuchadnezzar set up, we all know that he made everybody bow down and worship it, and that if they didn't, the penalty was death. And Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego, God's 3 prophets, they wouldn't bow down to the idol. And so he threw them into the fiery furnace. He was furious. He turned the heat up so high that the guards throwing them in died, you know. And what had happened with that idol and why he became so crazy about it was because in all the things they had stolen from Jerusalem, when Babylon had taken over Jerusalem and carried away the captives, you know, book of Daniel, they took a lot of holy artifacts from the temple, and they took a lot of information. And the story is that when they built that gold statue, that they put inside of its mouth the name of God, the sacred name of God, the whole thing, right? And that's when the statue started to tell people to bow down to it, and that it was God, and it started to speak great proud blasphemies against the Most High God. And it convinced people, this miracle, this sign, this wonder, convinced people to bow down. That's what the times we're living in. With this AI and the 5G and what they're going to be able to do, they can read your facial expressions through AI. It goes through a thing. It can tell what emotions you're having. It can tell your genetics. They can tell everything. And with 5G, you're literally going to be saying to the rocks, fall on us, because the only thing 5G can't pass through is rock. I live in Granite Mountain, so I'm probably in a better spot than the rest of you. But this AI, coupled with this technology, like the 5G that's coming up, and this idolatrous thing that the Roman Catholic Church has been on for a long time, is going to come down to an image that moves and speaks, and miracles and signs and wonders of healing that are going to look like people are getting eternal life and getting rejuvenation. But in reality, that's not going to be what it is. I'm just going to speak in this for a minute without. I'm just point this up at the sky and let you guys look at this, but because I got to start walking. So I know I'm going rapid fire here, but bottom line is that's what's coming up out of the pike. And, you know, if you do believe in the New Testament, and you believe that there's a great deception that's over the whole earth. Come on, let's go. I got kids playing here, so. Anyways, it's going to come in the name of God. It's going to come in the name of this Jesus, who I don't even really like saying the name, because, you know, it says in Exodus that you're not even supposed to be speaking the name of an idol. This is an idol. This name did not exist till 1611. It means, you know, just listen to it. Hey Zeus. Hail Zeus. Hail Zeus. That's what it means. I will not hail Zeus. And I'm not bound down to what the one world government is going to say is God and our finances. And, you know, what's interesting is that a lot of people are going to be tripped out in the long run when they see the end, because it's going to be that there's people I know who aren't religious at all. I know they're not going to fall for this idolatry in this one world system. A lot of Christians are, and a lot of Muslims are going to think it's their God. It's going to get heated up. And so, you know, I'm praying that the Messiah, son of David, the Lion of the tribe of Judah, is going to be on the scene real quick. But it's time to be ready, guys. And so I'm just going to go over those 7 Noahide laws before I sign out. I brought them up in my last video. They are the laws that all the generations of Noah, all the righteous among the Gentiles, are definitely going to go by. We have our own good works and, you know, a pattern to follow. And if you want to look at the New Testament, the 7 Noahide laws are listed in the book of Acts. When they ask the disciples in Jerusalem what to tell the new believers, the Gentile converts, to do, they said, you know, you can't lay the burden on them of becoming Jews. And they said, you know, don't eat meat sacrificed to idols. You know, sexual immorality, none of that. You know, it's the 7 Noahide laws that they describe. So I'm just going to run them over. The first one is that there is one God. One God. That everybody everywhere who prays, no matter what religion they are, if they're praying to God, they're praying to the same God. Right? The God that created the whole universe, the master of the universe, right? One God. One God. He's not a respecter of persons. Number two, no idols. You know? And that's a real easy one to understand. You look at any, including Christians worshiping Jesus, you look at this, what is idolatry? What are the benefits of this? You've got the Catholic Church being one of the most prolific sex rings on the earth with sex slavery. Catholics are disgusted with it. That's just the reality of it. Because that's what happens when you bring idolatry in. Protestants do it too. They may say they don't, but they do. And anybody's prone to it. But when you look at the religious institutions that endorse idolatry, you'll see over and over again that there's this problem with pedophilia and perversion and every kind of sexual immorality. It leads to murders. It leads to, I believe they killed Pope John Paul. I want to say it was John Paul. He had a real problem with the Nazis, And what was it, Derek, with Pope John Paul?
Pope John Paul?
Yeah. You were telling me about him and the Nazis.
He was part of the resistance.
Yeah, Pope John Paul was part of the resistance to the Nazi regime. Well, you've got the Rothschilds and the Catholic Church and the governments working together behind the scenes. And of course, we know that they endorsed Hitler, that they made that war happen. Those same people. So, anyway, so that's the second Noahide Law. And then you've got don't murder. It's an easy one, guys. Don't steal. Honor marriage. Don't be committing to sexual immorality. Don't be molesting kids and stuff. And the seventh one is to establish laws that support these previous laws, the ones I just named off. One God, no idolatry, no murder, no stealing, no sexual immorality, no torturing animals. And then the seventh law is, set up courts and systems of law to enforce these things. And that's exactly what our Constitution is. So it really does. If you go through those Noahide Laws, you'll find that our whole Constitution is really based off of that. And I believe that's why God has blessed this country up to this point. Because, in a way, our founding fathers, they were Noahides. They were deists. They weren't idolaters in the sense that what they're trying to convince us is the way that this has always been. This is what Joshua taught. No, it's not. You know what? I think he would have been so ashamed of what the Catholic Church inserted, what the Protestants, what we've all inserted and endorsed into the mouth of God lies. And let God be true and every man a liar. But the man who they call Jesus, he would have asked God to take his name out of that book because of the idolatry associated with it. That's what I believe. All right, love your neighbor. And telling you one other thing that the Christians have wrong, guys, is that everybody's going to go to hell if they don't believe in this Jesus. That's part of the plot, man. The Muslims and the Christians both teach a very similar system of belief. You'll find with the Jews and the actual people who study the Torah that actually that's baloney. There's righteous people. There are righteous people who are not part of your religion, who believe there's one God. And they try to act right and obey God's laws, Then they happen in every people on the face of the earth. Not just one group, okay? It's not Allah, it's not Jesus. There's one God. And he's so great, we don't have a name for him. Our human mouth cannot pronounce a name that would even begin to describe what he is. Above and beyond anything that we could ever even imagine. I mean, dimensions that we have not even conceived could exist. Just like, you ever wonder when you're a kid, when you look at the colors and you think, does everybody see it the same way? Maybe they see a different color, but it's consistent. So they call it blue because I call it blue, but we both see it different, right? Well, there's dimensions. I always thought if you couldn't see the color someone else was seeing, you could never conceive of it. You would never know that you weren't seeing the same color. And it's true. People react to different colors different ways. So it's also like this with God,
Hi, Kirby.
He would have asked God.
I've pre-recorded this. Let me pick it back up. Okay, here we go. Okay, so here we go. It's the rest of the video because it was skipping real bad.
God to take his name out of that book because of the idolatry associated with it. That's what I believe. All right, love your neighbor. And telling you one other thing that the Christians have wrong, guys, is that everybody's going to go to hell if they don't believe in this Jesus. That's part of the plot. Yeah? The Muslims and the Christians both teach a very similar system of belief. You'll find with the Jews and the actual people who study the Torah that actually that's baloney. There's righteous people. There are righteous people who are not part of your religion, who believe there's one God. And they try to act right and obey God's laws, Then they happen in every people on the face of the earth. Not just one group, okay? It's not Allah, it's not Jesus. There's one God. And he's so great, we don't have a name for him. Our human mouth cannot pronounce a name that would even begin to describe what he is. Above and beyond anything that we could ever even imagine. I mean, dimensions that we have not even conceived could exist. Just like, you ever wonder when you're a kid, when you look at the colors and you think, does everybody see it the same way? Maybe they see a different color, but it's consistent. So they call it blue because I call it blue, but we both see it different, right? Well, there's dimensions. I always thought if you couldn't see the color someone else was seeing, you could never conceive of it. You would never know that you weren't seeing the same color. And it's true. People react to different colors different ways. It's also like this with God, There's dimensions. It's a beyond. This is the whole universe we're talking about. The synchronicities of the whole universe. Everything. There's dimensions of God. That's what they're looking into at CERN, at these government-funded facilities where they're opening up black holes and trying to go to other dimensions and using quantum physics to try to transport things and all that. That's them trying to touch into these dimensions, these other levels. But God inhabits so many dimensions beyond what we could even imagine, that we couldn't even think of, like a color you've never seen. And you judge a tree by its fruits. I've heard so many people say